There is a kind of love that becomes more humbling as we mature. Love for family. We love deeply, yet we are often powerless. We want to protect everyone, to be present at all times, to prevent anything harmful from reaching those we care about. But life teaches us a sobering truth. No one can be everywhere. No one can control every turning point, and no one is strong enough to carry the full weight of another person's destiny. It is precisely in the space between love and helplessness that prayer for family is born, not as a religious ritual, but as an act of awareness. It is the moment we acknowledge that our love, however sincere, still needs to be placed within a greater care. Praying for family does not begin with fear, but with truth. Family is a gift, not a possession. When we think of family, many images arise. Some are near, some far. Some are strong, others exhausted. There is familiar laughter, and there are silences we struggle to name. Family is not always peaceful, but it always reaches the deepest layers of the heart. That is why praying for family is not about asking for a life without storms, but asking that each person be held when storms arrive. If the one who guards does not build the house, every effort remains fragile. Psalm-inspired. This remembered truth does not call us to give up. It restores proper order. It reminds us that our role is to love, care, and guide within our limits, while ultimate protection does not rest on our shoulders. When this becomes clear, we stop trying to play God in our families and learn instead to be faithful humans. One of the heaviest burdens within family life is worry. Worry about health, about choices, about the future, about what we cannot supervise. This worry often grows louder at night when distractions fade. Prayer does not eliminate worry through logic. It transforms worry by placing it where it belongs. We do not deny our concern. We relocate it. Entrusting is not indifference. On the contrary, it is the highest form of mature love. We continue to teach, to guide, to listen, to correct. But we no longer allow fear to dominate our imagination. Instead of rehearsing worst-case scenarios, we choose to trust that there is a presence at work beyond our sight. Do not fear, for there is a presence that walks with you and upholds you, even when your heart trembles. Isaiah inspired. This remembered assurance is especially vital for those praying for family. During uncertain seasons, it does not promise ease, but it affirms that no one in our family walks alone. This presence does not override human choice, but it protects and illuminates fragile decisions. Praying for family also becomes an act of relational healing. When we bring each person before God, the way we see them begins to change. We become less fixated on what they do wrong and more attentive to what they are carrying. We grow less urgent to correct and more patient to understand. Prayer does not only guard the family from external harm, it softens the inner edges. Protection, then, is not limited to physical safety. It includes guarding the mind from fear, the heart from bitterness, and relationships from prolonged misunderstanding. A covered family is not one without conflict, but one that knows where to return. When conflict arises, peace is given to stand guard over the heart and mind, so worry does not take the throne. Paul's words remembered. This peace does not erase differences, but it keeps differences from destroying intimacy. It teaches family members how to disagree without searing connection, how to correct without wounding, and how to choose silence when words would only deepen harm. When we pray for family, we are also shaping its future, not through detailed plans, but through foundation. A family placed consistently in prayer learns to rely on something sturdier than fleeting emotions. They learn that when they do not understand each other, there is a place to return. When circumstances feel uncontrollable, there is shelter. In the end, praying for family is the most honest confession of humility. I love them, but I am not their savior. This confession does not diminish love. It places love where it belongs. And when love is rightly placed, it becomes lighter, stronger, and freer. When prayer for family has been truly entrusted, something else begins to shift within us. We no longer see family solely through the lens of responsibility, but through the lens of shared journey. Family members stop being those I must manage and become those I am walking with. This quiet shift is profound. It alters how we show up. Less tense, less controlling, more trusting. Many family conflicts are not born of malice, but of fear. Fear of losing one another. Fear that someone will choose wrongly. Fear of what we cannot keep up with. When fear governs, we speak too quickly, react instead of listen, and defend our position rather than the relationship. Prayer does not erase fear, but it brings fear into the light. In that light, fear no longer drives action. It becomes something acknowledged and cared for. At this point, prayer stops being only a request for protection and becomes a request to love well, to love without suffocating, to care without surveillance, to lead without replacing freedom. Families need steady presence, more than constant intervention, and steady presence only emerges when the inner life is calm enough not to react from anxiety. This is especially true in seasons of transition, when children grow, parents age, finances shift, new choices appear. Change always carries uncertainty, and uncertainty often settles into our closest relationships. Praying for family in such moments is not asking for things to return to how they were, but asking for enough peace to walk forward without losing one another. A covered family is not one that never argues, but one that knows how to return after disagreement, to return to the truth. That relationship matters more than winning, to return to the understanding that everyone is still learning. Prayer keeps the path of return open, even when emotions are heated. Blessed are those who make peace, for they belong to God's household. Jesus' words remembered. This remembered saying is not merely an ethical ideal. It is a way of life for families. Peacemakers do not avoid conflict. They refuse to let conflict define identity. In families, peacemakers are often not the loudest voices, but those strong enough to lower their tone, humble enough to apologize, and loving enough not to turn mistakes into permanent labels. Prayer also clarifies another truth. Each family member must be seen as a whole person, not merely a role. Parents are not only providers. Children are not only receivers of instruction. Siblings are not just shared history. Each person carries a unique journey, private questions, and unseen burdens. Prayer teaches us to honor difference rather than confuse love with sameness. From here, our blessings change shape. We stop blessing our family only with safety and begin blessing them with growth, not only with success, but with faithfulness, not only with protection from pain, but with support. When pain arrives, these blessings do not make us less caring. They deepen our care. Over time, a praying family develops a culture of returning rather than withdrawing, of speaking truth rather than harboring silent distance, of asking forgiveness before wounds harden. This culture does not emerge by accident. It is formed through small, repeated choices. listening 1 minute longer, staying silent when anger peaks, praying before concluding. Something quietly beautiful happens then. The prayer we offer for family begins to pray back into us. It softens our judgments, slows our reactions, reminds us that love is a process, not a finished achievement. We never complete loving our family. We practice it daily, under changing circumstances. At a deeper level, prayer dismantles a common illusion, the belief that if we do everything right, family life will remain unbroken. In reality, pain is part of shared life. Because humans are finite, prayer does not eliminate fun. It ensures pain does not speak last. There is healing. There is reconnection. There is a way forward. Seen from this perspective, protection is no longer about building high walls, but laying deep foundations of trust, honest speech, and forgiveness practiced, rather than praised. Such foundations do not prevent every storm, but they keep the house standing when storms pass. Here we finally understand that praying for family is not an optional extra. It is a form of quiet leadership. Leadership without force or control, yet capable of long-term direction. It places the family on a trajectory where love is not dependent on favorable conditions, and hope does not evaporate in difficulty. When prayer for family has been practiced long enough, a steady transformation takes place. We begin to live in alignment with what we have been praying. Prayer and behavior no longer exist as separate worlds. We react less from old habits, speak less from raw emotion, and resist labeling loved ones by a single moment. The covering we ask for gradually becomes the way we ourselves cover our family. Through presence, responsibility begins to feel lighter, not because we care less, but because we trust the process more. Trust does not make us careless. It makes us patient enough to recognize that growth unfolds at different paces, that each person learns distinct lessons, and that mature love knows how to wait. Family, seen this way, is not a project to complete, but a relationship to tend. This care shows up in tangible, ordinary choices, choosing to ask one more question rather than drawing a quick conclusion, choosing to listen fully instead of interrupting, choosing silence when words would wound further. These choices are not always easy, but they are the daily embodiment of prayer. They turn the hope of protection into lived reality. When families face failure, poor decisions, hurtful moments, seasons of wandering, the prayer sown earlier bears fruit. It does not erase consequences, but it prevents consequences from becoming destiny. There is return. There is learning. There is space to begin again. Without denying what occurred, a covered family is not one that never falls, but one that rises together. Grace is sufficient for the day, and strength is revealed in weakness. Paul's words remembered. This remembered truth matters deeply in family life, where weakness is most exposed. It reminds us that families do not become strong by hiding cracks, but by allowing grace to mend them. Protection here is not constant defense, but resilience. Another realization emerges. Praying for family shapes legacy, not material legacy, but spiritual inheritance. The way love is modeled, conflict handled, hope sustained under pressure. These lessons are taught, not through speeches, but through observation. Children learn from how adults apologize. The young learn from how elders release resentment. Every generation learns from the family's choice to return rather than fracture. At the deepest level, prayer for family leads to liberating humility. We are not the final support. This realization does not absolve responsibility. It restores it. We do our part faithfully and lovingly, then entrust what remains to the one who keeps watch. This discernment allows us to love without exhaustion and care without being consumed by anxiety. As the day ends and familiar faces return in memory, prayer no longer needs length, it needs honesty. Honest gratitude for having walked together this far. Honest surrender of what remains beyond reach. Honest hope that whatever tomorrow brings, the family rests in hands larger than fear. Lord, I give thanks for my family with all its joys and unfinished places. I entrust to you what I cannot control and ask for faithfulness in what is mine to carry. Teach me to love without anxiety, to guide without force, and to protect without fear. Cover each one I love with peace deep enough to stand firm and grace wide enough to begin again. Let this home, wherever it may be, become a place where hope is nurtured and love is practiced daily. Amen.